in the blue here. Teamless for now. She's Nina.
And in the top left side, we are looking at the main base of the man who just saw his teammate cause a bit of an upset. Can he too cause a bit of an upset? It is Apprentice Esports Ukko. Ukko.
I believe it's pronounced Ukko, but you can't spam good. You can't spam good Luco Ukko, but you can spam good Lucko Ukko. So
love it. I mean, if it's Ukko, why isn't it with a single K?
Roddy, be real with me for a second here. You look at player names all day long. They decide whatever it is. When have they always made sense? When have they always
Very
been
rarely.
pronounced as they're written? You know, it's a thing.
We've got a hatch first on the side of the map over Zergi with a pool. No extractor yet. Now is he still taking now? If he doesn't take it now, then we might actually stay gasless for a little while. So it's a 129 gas. It is economic, but this obviously does mean that you can have Zergling speed a little bit later. Or there will be no Zergling speed, and then it's just super weird. But yeah, if I see this as a Protoss, I will always think like, oh, okay, my adepts can stick around a little bit longer on the other side of the map. Can potentially get lucky and find a couple of drones.
Yeah, the other interesting thing as well that Ukko does, and we saw Scarlet doing it last season, not maybe as much right now, is that Ukko went for the 15-15. He went for the Eric build to make sure his natural went down to the natural, and that also does mess with your timings a little bit. You lose like half a drone on the cancel, maybe a little bit less than that. Slows you down a little bit in that way, but you do make sure you get your natural down. So, 6 one way, half dozen the other. What I'm really looking at here, because I think Ukko is going to play he plays a very standard style of Zerg, very defensive, but very standard. Oh, Nina tried for the microticks there. I don't think it keeps this probe alive, though. Right? The link should be fast enough.
Well, the shields regenerating was actually quite a bit, and it has 13 HP now, so it is going to stay alive.
Hey!
I don't know if the pylon did it, but hey, it worked.
Pretty cool, right? I choose to believe the pylon did it. That was pretty fun.
Nina opening up with the Twilight Council. So no Stargate. We're so used to seeing Oracles first in this matchup. We'll take it from there. Instead, it is going to be Twilight into Robo. Can be glazed, but with the amount of gas that's being mined, it's giving me some DT vibes.
I like the idea of DTs. Ukko is, again, this just very solid, stable Protoss player who's going to play defensively. So if you can try to break him early or hit him with a weird timing, and there we go. Nice shout there, Roddy, on the DTs. Maybe you can get some damage done. And certainly, even if the DTs themselves don't kill something, you can turn them into 2 Archons. They can drop in. I think the powerful idea here, especially as we're not, at the top, tippy top here of the meta, or of the players that we expect to move on into the top 4, say, is that if you can throw something a little bit odd, that's, by the way, get two drones on the other side. If you can throw something a little off meta, maybe Ukko hasn't dealt with this all that much recently. Maybe he's not going to respond as perfectly, but for now, there are no stalkers. There's going to be a full scout. Ukko knows exactly what's coming.
Yeah, surprising that it was a double adept opening while both adepts went to the other side of the map and there was actually nothing at home. So that also meant that the doors were open. Now, Nina obviously knew that the gas was a little bit later and didn't have to worry about links, but even just 4 slow Zerglings could have really messed up her build order. That's not going to happen. In the end, it is 1 adept going down and a recall for 2 drones. I think that's something that Ukko can live with, especially with the good scout he had on the Dark Shrine and the gateways on the other side of the map.
Yeah, I more than just something he can live with, or she can live with. I think that's actually just a really good trade. But now here comes the Warp Prism. On the other side, Lings are shadowing this, though, so even getting the Warp in might take a second. But now, 3 DTs on the way. Spore's just about done at the perfect timing, so, I mean, actually, Force DT is going to Warp in right now. And, yeah, Nina just... Ooh, this is interesting. No, okay, she's just going to turn it into an Archon. I was going to say it looks like she might be going for, 2 DTs, 2 Archons, something like that. Again, trying to find some value, maybe looking for snipes. But now it's just 2 Archons. And Lings, though, they're flooding onto the other side. Ukko wants nothing with this defense. He's going to try to get a little aggressive.
This is kind of risky because now if the Warp Prism warps in a few more units, and it's not just 2 Archons battling Queens, but it's 2 Archons and even a slow Zealot or 2 or another DT, right? Can really complicate things, but Ukko is going to get away with it. So far, it seems like it was a perfect call. Nina not really finding a whole lot. 10 more drones, by the way. Like, Ukko is just not afraid at all, as he is working with his Lurklings on the other side of the map. Really wants to get a Zealot. Will finally get a Zealot, but needs to make sure that he doesn't take too much damage from these Queens. I really wonder what would have happened if Nina would have just walked in. Just say one more DT here. 2 Archons and a DT are so much more terrifying than just 2 Archons. Would have been really difficult, I think, for Ukko not to take any damage.
And you know, as this game goes later, Roddy, looking at what Nina's doing right now, she's now got a third base on the way, but I can't help but feel that she's gearing up for a much more powerful timing in the next 30 seconds or so. Charge is halfway done. She's added an Immortal into this. It feels like there is something on the way, right? The third base is pretty slow. Granted, this is DT drops, so you do tend to get it a little bit slower there, but it feels like there's something a little bit more than just, you know, Archon drops. I'm going to take a third behind it. It's fine.
Yeah, but I guess if you're even in workers, you really don't need to attack as a Protoss, right? If it's 3 bases against 3 bases and it's 54 probes against 51 drones, does Nina really need to do anything? Like, I kind of think it's up to Ukko to do something. Nina did lose her Observer, by the way. The Observer was a little bit too close to one of the Spore Crawlers, and then the Queens picked it up. So that's a pretty good little pickup for Ukko, but overall, the man does need a little more than what he's currently working with, because I don't know if he's ever going to win when he's just on 3 bases and building +1 roaches. I think Nina is way too good to die against that.
Yeah, now Nina a little bit inconsistent or indecisive, there we go, on what exactly she wants to kill with these Archons. She could have gotten a couple Overlords, could have gotten maybe some more drones, but instead just kind of tickles everything. Nothing really dies. Even still, it's pressure on the map, although this Warp Prism half HP right now. You got to be very careful if you're Nina here thinking about diving on top once again. Do not do that, Nina. The Queens are there, and they are, well, a little bit more damage went down there. The Queens are pretty powerful. But yeah, Roddy, I'm with you. So it seems like Ukko's response is not going to be the +1 roach. He's building those defensively, maybe going for some aggression, but shouldn't work out super well. But there's a Spire on the way. And against Robotech, Spires can be really good. There's not going to be Phoenix play all that quickly. Even Blink is actually pretty slow into this. We don't have Blink yet. Is this what...
No, that could be the one thing, right, that Ukko is hoping for, that he can make a couple of Mutas, catch Nina off guard. Mutas can get on top of mineral lines, can obviously fight the army as well. The only thing that's currently terrifying are Archons. But, I mean, it's gonna take a little while. It's all kind of late. I'm still not loving it, but this is definitely a scenario where the Muta can shine. Like, no Blink yet, no need to worry about a whole bunch of Stalkers blinking all over the shop, so... perhaps that is the one way that Ukko can truly get something going for himself. At this point, it's not all doom and gloom, but if this hatchery gets cancelled, Zealots have decent DPS. I think Ukko is very happy to see that 4 out of the 6 Zealots turned around there to battle the roaches. Because if all of them would have just gone for the hatch, don't know if it would have gone down, but it would have been awfully close, Bio.
Yeah, I mean, would have been fun to find out, but for now, again, it doesn't get that much done. It's a scout. Is that worth anything? Is a scout for 10 Zealots, is that worth enough? Is that worth anything?
No, because I think you kind of expect the Zerg to go up to 4 bases, so... you know, that wasn't great for Nina, and the supplies now do heavily favor Ukko, as Ukko has only made 6 Mutas, and is now just gonna go back into Mass Roach, Mass Ravager, and the Mutas are forcing out a very big investment, so Nina's gonna have to drop really good force fields. There are a couple of Ravagers in the mix. This is definitely not going to be easy. You have to worry about Mutas, and even though we have some cannons and Stargates soon to build some Phoenixes, you also have to worry about a lot of Roaches. The force fields are a little bit late. 1 Colossus dies, but there are still 3 Immortals. There's a battery overcharge, there's a cannon. I think the 3 Immortals should be good enough.
Yeah, the Mutas are just, there's no shield battery in the mineral line, but there are 2 cannons per mineral line as well, so the Mutas are getting something. 4 probes have gone down, but this is not enough, Roddy. You're right. That attack, just a Colossus going down is always nice, but all the Mutas are dead now. That heavy commitment, you spend the gas, you spend the minerals on the Spire, you spend it on the Mutas, and to get 4 probes, I mean, that's not a lot. That's really not all that much.
And the best thing ever for Nina right now is that Nina is no longer in danger of dying to roaches, because not only does he have a Phoenix out, she's got a Dark Shrine from the beginning of the game. So you've got Phoenix DT, and there is no way for Ukko to keep Overseers alive. He's got nothing that can protect a single Overseer. So unless you would attack with like 20 Overseers, you're always going to lose detection, and that's just very painful. Now 1 DT is going to walk into this very exposed base. A couple of drones are going to fall. Actually, the single Overseer that was just made is going to show up very quickly, so that defense is good. Yeah, Ukko is going to be stuck on a relatively basic army for a long time, and we can't even talk about +2 Banelings one-shotting mineral lines anymore. Not often do you look at a 40 supply advantage for the Zerg and you're like, huh, looks really bad for the Zerg. I think in this case, it kind of does look really bad for Ukko.
Yeah, and this fourth base as well for Nina. I mean, how do you attack into this? That ramp is so small. You can't really set up a surround. So instead, into the third base once again here. And this is still a massive army. But the Banelings, they're just, well, look at those lifts. They're trying to keep things alive. Only 2 probes go down. She lifts so many of the Banes and pulls the probes in time for the rest. That looked like a horrifying fight for Nina. She just wasn't in time and ready in time. But instead, it gets nothing done. That was so well played.
2 of the Ravages are going to get picked off. There is an Overseer in the mix. I'd love to see an early Nova. There is an early Nova, and it's an absolutely fantastic connection on a lot of the Banelings. The force fields are good, and the supplies, well, they're now kind of telling you how this game is really going. There's only 1 Overseer. I'd really love to see Nina snipe that Overseer and just warp in a couple of DTs. I think that would make our life a lot easier, but we still have 5 Immortals on the ground. The Baneling connections are good, but it is just never going to be good enough, and only 5 probes is simply not what Ukko was looking for. Ukko does have a 5th base coming online in the top side of the map, does have Hive now, is gonna think of Ultras. I still think of the problem of DTs, but DTs are a real issue. Combined with all these Phoenixes on the map, eventually you need something to take care of these Phoenixes.
Roddy, on top of that, going Ultras into a Protoss player that already has 5 + 2 Immortals, Archons as well, what exactly are these Ultras gonna do? Die? I don't think they do a lot.
Ukko now realizes that these Phoenixes are becoming an issue, especially because they have +1 air weapons, so they just deal a little more damage. He's gonna queue up a couple of Corruptors, but a couple of Corruptors is not good enough. Yeah, I'm with you on the Ultras. On the other end, we can also ask ourselves the question, what should Ukko be building? Broodlords against the double Stargate fleet beacon setup that the Nina already has, probably not really it. Hydra's obviously not it either against Disruptors, Colossus, and soon Storm. Like, I don't even really know what is the best unit for Ukko to build here. Like, Lurkers are always kind of cool, but it would take a long time to get enough Lurkers out to pose a real threat to this Protoss army.
I feel like maybe Broodlord Corruptor might be the best option, but I don't know that Ukko has the money for it necessarily anyway. So, yeah, I guess Ultras may be the best of a bad situation, but he's going to run across the map. He's going to run into these Immortals. He's going to find these carriers in the sky. Nina's got 2 of them, 2 more on the way, +1 air attack already done. And he's going to, I think Ukko, we're going to see him take 1 big fight. He's going to lose that fight. And I think we're going to go to game 2. Who knows? Maybe there's magic, Roddy. Sell me on the magic.
Well, Nina does not like to attack very often, does he? So, you know, you're not technically wrong, and I think this fight once more, it should never really work out because we can never kill DTs unless we have a lot of Baneling connections. The Ultras, Lings, and Roaches might be able to get a cancel on that base. It's a straight up kill, so that's 400 minerals down the drain. I mean, that went maybe as good as it could go. But I guess the game could theoretically go on for a very long time if Nina is just chilling. And yeah, we do know that Nina enjoys a good chill session while playing PvZ. Can maybe say perhaps he's just waiting for +2 air weapons, but honestly, I think that would be a lie, Bio. I think she's waiting for a whole lot more. I think she's kind of just waiting for Ukko to send wave after wave after wave of these Zerg units to her side of the map, and she's just gonna have a good old time defending.
You know, Roddy, there was a game earlier where both players tried to break each other. They didn't. They lost everything, and it's like, well, you know, just the thing you're learning about this is just never attack. Let your opponent attack into you, but let them break upon your shores. But for now, this high ground we talked about, it's not as heavily defended as it otherwise was. It's only an Archon and Storms there, but that is going to be more than enough, even with just the rest of the army of Nina more towards the middle of the map. And now she does seem to be moving out. +2 attack is done. Archon found on the left side, though. Ukko looking for that counterattack, but there's a DT. You talked about the DT. It gets some damage done before the Overseer returns, and it does appear that Nina's moving out now. She's got those carriers. She is maxed out.
Ukko needs to get rid of a couple of his Roaches. Now, ideally, you want to get rid of them while they still kill something, but Ukko really needs to free up supply, as he barely had any anti-air, so losing these units was actually a good thing for the Zerg, so we can go from 4 all the way up to 11 Corruptors. Now, 11 Corruptors with only +1 flyer attacks, no armor, against this many carriers would normally be an issue, but it's only an issue if your opponent is attacking you, and Nina is still not attacking. She's just waiting.
I mean, again, why would you attack if you could defend? We all know that that's how that works. You know, eventually the Zerg is going to take the map, and eventually you're going to outtrade them anyways. That's what Nina and Ukko last year taught us, or last season taught us. That's what Nina's teaching us right now. And Roddy, buckle up. There are more bases to take.
Yeah, there are many more bases to take, and indeed, this theoretically could go on for a very long time. Like, I really don't think it's needed. And I don't mind a long game, but I do feel that Nina had a couple of opportunities at this point to just run to the other side of the map. The longer you wait, the more difficult it can get, because the more spore crawlers we can theoretically get. At the moment, it's only 6. That's really not that many. Corrupt account 11 against 6 carriers with +2. +3 is finishing up. Maybe that's the timing then that we wait for, as Ukko is going to send a few more units to the bottom side of the map. 1 DT is not going to save this base. So now Nina's going to bring over her entire army. Like, I do generally hope that she just goes for it with +3 air weapons, because I think otherwise we are memeing a little too much. You take the risk of losing. At this point, Ukko barely has any spellcasters. The only spellcasters he has, if they qualify, are queens. But if we wait another 5 minutes, obviously you're going to have to worry about infestors. You're going to have to worry about vipers. Right now, I don't think there's a way for Nina to lose the fight.
Yeah, this really does feel like something. She can just run across the map and A move, but again, I know it sounds like we're joking, but she doesn't want to take that fight. She was in a maybe even better situation, I forget, against Ukko in game 2 in that series we talked about last season, and that game went an hour long because she didn't want to attack, was too afraid of the army. And by the way, Roddy, we were talking about these ultras that we have, these 5 of them on the map right now, about how they were going to get built. Ukko was going to crash into an army. They were going to die, and just the immortals are there. Now that we're in this late game, now that there are carriers on the field, and there are so many High Templar beneath this army, or there were at one point, I hate the ultras less, I think. They can dive on top of these High Templar. They can knock them down, and as we transition late game, it's a lot better. It was the mid-game army that Nina had that was scary. The late game, though, ironically, the ultras are just a little better, I think.
Yeah, no, the ultras can definitely shine. I would love to see the Phoenix lift the infestor, and that's what's going to happen. Afterwards, it got fungled as well, or before it got feedback, and then it got picked up, so that is cool. Nina's now going to use a recall to her bottom side base, as Ukko is running a couple of ultras into cannons. Yeah, the ultras have potential. They're also very good in, hopefully, for Ukko, letting the carriers attack it, right? Because no matter how good the carrier upgrades are, carriers are not fantastic against ultras. So there's definitely a place for this ultra to shine. I mean, Nina should have just really gone for it. The longer you wait, the more complicated it's going to get. And maybe it's still going to be okay, as we have 8 more cannons on the production tab, but if you can fight maxed out against the maxed out Zerg and those 0 spellcasters, there really is like no reason to not fight.
I love that random disruptor as well. I think Nina was just giving the supply away. Like, yeah, disruptors, they're not all that useful in this game anymore, but might as well send it into the waiting mob of a Broodlord and find no value. But yeah, you're looking flashy, you know, you're doing something like that. Is now Nina. The one thing we do have to point out is she's, again, really reticent to be too active. She's doing a really good job of keeping the creep on her opponent's side of the map. We've seen games early on, like say Scarlet and Future, where Scarlet went and she had creep outside of Future's base very quickly when he was playing that defensive style. This time Nina playing aggressive enough as the gas is going to go down here, but cannons are actually really good against ultras, especially in a setup like this. This is not going to break, not at all here. So Ukko again throws a couple more resources away. Roddy, we reset.
Yeah, 120 army supply each. Nina has a couple of Tempests in the mix now as well to deal with the Broodlords. Spore crawler count is now at 17. Earlier it was at like 3 or 4. Is this the moment that Nina feels that she can make some magic happen? Maybe a bit more confident now there are some Tempests in the mix. So she feels he can just shell away this army from afar. A fungal does land on a couple of the High Templars. Storm goes down. Doesn't really connect. Ukko trying his luck again with the ultras on the right side of the map, but you mentioned it. Cannons and these numbers are very good. Corruptors got on top of the Protoss army there for a split second, and a lot of them went down very quickly.
Yeah, that was pretty expensive, although it's only 5 Corruptors died at the end of the day, so you can heal the rest of them. The one problem when we talk about these sky armies, and you know, eventually Ukko is going to get into 3-3. Right now he's at 2-2 for the air, eventually +3 flyer carapace, as well as that. If a Protoss takes a 50-50 fight, for the most part, they're going to take shields damage. They're going to hopefully micro some of those flyer units back. They're not going to take too much hull damage, and that health fully regens. It takes a lot longer for Corruptors to fully heal back up, even with their innate regen right there. So that can be something we can start to track a little bit as Nina on the high ground here gets some Banelings. That's always going to be nice. we're starting to hit the point where it's really hard for Nina to push with all these spore crawlers, with the fungals, with the corruptors here, with their heavy upgrades. And it's not necessarily that Ukko that has survived to 20 minutes. It's more that Nina has not attacked and not punished Ukko as he's gotten himself into this point.
Yeah, we're gonna have a couple of banelings rolling into the middle line on the right side, but there are so many cannons that it's gonna take around 20 waves of banelings before we can find a lot of success. Yeah, now there are games where we can really praise the Zerg for their ability to hang in there, right? Their resilience and yeah, the great army movement, but this really was Nina just letting it happen, embracing it. And, you know, obviously, if this is what she's very confident with, it is an important game. These are the America regionals. Everyone can play in whatever way they want, but what I kind of find sad is that it's actually more likely, and I don't say it's going to happen, that Nina is now going to lose the game than it was a while ago. There really was just almost no way to lose. When your army is that much better, you're so far ahead in upgrades, there are no spellcasters on the Zerg side. Like, you're putting yourself in danger of actually losing the game, while earlier I really don't think it was losable.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is Nina just being very happy with chilling out, letting the game go later, and how much of this is her practice partners or just bad memories. So what I'm thinking about here, Flash, for example, actively made it harder for other players to win, even when he wasn't playing against them. Back in Brood War, they went on record talking about how practicing with Flash enough made them forget how to win the game, because it felt so hard, so impossible, and they didn't do it. I wonder whether Nina's lost enough games where she plays this kind of would have gone for the A move and misread slightly, and then things go down where it's just like, you know what, I could probably end the game right now, but the 5% chance where I get swallowed up and just and my opponent makes Zerg look really broken, that's just not worth it. So why would I do that?
Yeah, it could be it. And I think it's one of the only logical explanations that Nina has indeed just attacked too many times in the past. And at one point she said, all right, that's it. Never again. I'm going to stay near cannons and batteries because I believe that is the way to win late game PvZ. But obviously not every game with carriers and Tempest is necessarily late game, as these Tempests are, by the way, finding some really good value. Getting a Broodlord, two of them do get fungal. Corruptors are now kind of by themselves. So yeah, I think you're onto something there, BO, because otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think some of that approach, it obviously adds up, right? Like too many scenarios, even as a Protoss, when you're going up against only Roaches and Lynx, and you have a bunch of Immortals and your army is way better, sometimes you can be like, well, I don't really need to attack and I don't want to take the risk of being gobbled up by the Zerg on the other side of the map. It's just a carriers benefit so incredibly much from having a upgrade advantage that it really is a shame to not go for it, because even the bad fights will always be good, even unless there are like, you know, 10 corruptors for every carrier. But if the numbers are somewhat close, like 6 carriers with an upgrade advantage against 10 corruptors, there's no such thing as a bad fight. Only if there are a bunch of Vipers in the mix, right? Or Infestors that you have to worry about. But all of those units weren't there. But yeah, Nina is doing what Nina likes to do. And if she can just bring it home, I'm sure she's going to be very happy with her performance. And there's nothing wrong with that, as we do land a couple of feedbacks. First Storm lands on the Corruptors, but the Corruptor count is a whole lot higher now than it was a long time ago. Storm after Storm. Archons on the ground, by the way, getting a couple of very big hits off too. I mean, they both took some serious losses there, but I think in the end, Ukko lost a little more than Nina did.
I mean, Nina lost two Immortals, which are not nearly as relevant at this point. She lost 2 carriers, a High Templar. That's not nearly, you're right, that's not nearly as much as Ukko lost. It's kind of funny trying to parse that battle report, because half that it's like saying, you know, Ukko killed some units, but Nina also, I guess, killed some of her own. Apparently she killed one of her carriers with the defensive storm, which is really weird, but last tick of damage, I guess, so that's fun. But yeah, no, that was expensive from Ukko. He does have the map. His economy is going pretty nicely. I mean, look at resources lost here, plus 12,000 in the good for Nina at this point.
Does Ukko hate Vipers?
You know, I think last season he eventually got into Vipers, but it took him a long time to get there.
Why do you think a Zerg would hate Vipers?
More hotkeys, you know, if you got Infestors and Vipers and everything else, it can be pretty hard to control a big Zerg late game army. But for now, Nina's giving away the Immortals, the Archons. Their time is done. I don't think Archons really should go away, and a High Templar on top of this army as well. I feel like, I mean, actually, she's kind of pumping through. But I don't really think that all of these units had to be discarded like this. Sure, maybe the Immortals, you don't care about them as much, but maybe they're not the Sentry as well, although one Sentry underneath carriers can be really nice. But even still.
I like this, by the way. A couple Zealot Stalkers and an Immortal now getting up of the spines. Meanwhile, the carriers are in the center of the map. All the Interceptors are still inside of the carrier, though. That also, when fighting against the Zerg, could be a little bit scary. I'm kind of sad to see that Ukko didn't chase a little more. I would have loved to see these carriers all get on top of this. Assuming the Corruptors getting on top of the army. Now thinking about it, but close to batteries and cannons, yeah, then it's going to be a lot less pretty. Felt that there was a moment there, because Corruptors move a lot quicker than these Proto Sky units do.
That they do, but the base on the north side will go down. We talked about maybe that wasn't the right sacrifice, but if you get the base for it, and Ukko down to 55 drones, maybe? Somehow this Immortal is still alive, by the way. That being said, Roddy, you do bring up something interesting as we sit here in the late, or in our late game and start to theory craft a little bit. One of the downsides of carriers are the fact that it takes a while to get all the interceptors out, to get them to full DPS. That's why Graviton Catapult was a thing for a time. That's why it was really strong for a time. Is it worth it to build a Sentry or two and just like mass hallucinate probes or something to A-move on top of and just get all your interceptors out? Like, burst them out? Like, is that the play?
I think there are better ways to get your interceptors out than hallucinate a whole bunch of probes, but I love it, BO. Man, NA creativity really has no boundaries.
Hey, look, when you're 26 minutes into game one, and this is the last game of the day, and you suffered, and you had a 70-minute game last season, the madness sets in quick.
Yeah, no. I can imagine. Nina's gonna get her final upgrade, +3 air armor. A couple of the interceptors are out here already. That's also what I thought earlier was really her moment, when it was so easy to get all the interceptors out already because Ukko was so defensive. You could have attacked an extractor, or a spine crawler, or a spore crawler, or even some rocks, right, that were still out there on the map. It was so easy to take great fights. But yeah, that moment is long gone. Now we're really gonna have to battle for it. I still love Nina's position. Nina has a monstrous bank, and it does feel that she has made some good progress. The 27 Corruptors is still something you're gonna have to respect, and clearly she is respecting it.
That she is, and you know, honestly, Roddy, I don't know. I mean, okay, resources lost. That's the thing that matters here. I don't know that bank at this point matters all that much, because the fights are happening so infrequently, and the remaxes are just, you know, a little bit. There's always going to be enough for remax right now. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to suck out all the resources from your side of the map, so long as you do. And then how badly you trade. So Ukko down 13,000 resources. I think that is by far the more compelling component to take a look at how we're doing rather than the bank. Because again, you know, these fights happen so infrequently that Ukko, Nina can build a bank back up once again after they lose it, and then we can go fight.
I'm gonna get 10 more spines as well. But yeah, you make a very valid point. It's not that the only base I guess you can say is kind of up for grabs would normally be the bottom left, but yeah, if Ukko has the top right, it's like, okay, bottom left is a gold, top right is a normal base. Not really a really big difference there. I guess we're just slowly. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, actually, that's a fairly big deal, if you think about it. So you mine out a gold base faster, right? But it's got half the minerals. So if in this game of attrition, if Ukko can hold on to this and start to trade more efficiently, that actually is a pretty nice deal, but Nina's going to kill it, so maybe it doesn't matter as much after all.
I think Nina sees that the bottom left base is hers, and the top right side is actually a base they should fight over. All the Corruptors are going to come in from a very good angle. The storms were a little bit late in the end. The storms will be big. Carriers have a lot of HP. Corruptors are melting. We have Infested showing up with Neuroparasite. It seems in the end, though, Nina's army is still bigger. It's still better. Ukko is going to remax on 18 more Corruptors. But yeah, taking that fight without all the Broodlords, like, that could have been, I think, a really good fight. No, Rico gets used. And can the Broodlords make it home in time? I guess they can, because carriers are very slow. You know, that fight with that engagement of the Corruptors, I think it could have been pretty good for Ukko if the Broodlords were there. But now there was just absolutely nothing on the ground, and that made the Archons a very big problem.
Yeah, and now we talked about how I don't know that the relative banks matter all that much, because again, you're trading bits and pieces and it's probably fine. Now that Ukko has lost the north side base, which was the one of his last mining bases, and he just had to remax here, has no bank, he's not mining gas. there's exactly one extractor on the map that he owns, and it's got 110 gas in it that can still mine from. So
Sick.
yeah, we're not going to go to 70 odd minutes because Ukko can't build another army. He can't even max out right now. He has to take this north side base. And quite honestly, Roddy, look at how many Archons there are. I don't know how he fights this.
No, without any Vipers as well, right? Normally the Viper is the one unit where you can always say magic can happen, Abducts is sick, the combo of Fungo and Parasitic Bomb is an amazing combo, which can really make all the interceptors explode. But I guess that's the super nice thing for Nina in this game as well, is that you don't have to worry about all your interceptors exploding at once. Some of the Storms definitely did a lot of friendly fire to interceptors, and you kill a couple of them, but normally it's the Fungo and then the Parabomb, the Corruptors get on top of the carriers, and then the carriers are forced to have the interceptors around the Parasitic Bomb that's being targeted on one of the units, or that got dropped on one of the carriers. And you can go from like 80 interceptors to 0 real quick. These Ultras looked very strong indeed against the Zealots. But yeah, no Vipers. It's just like, oh, kind of cool. Really do not have to worry about anything.
No, you really don't. Although we figured out how Ukko's going to win the game at this point, right, Roddy? More fights like that. 20 Zealots versus 2 Ultras, and the Ultras win. That's how you win the game. Actually, I think you need what, 10 fights? 20 Zealots is 2,000 minerals. 5 fights like that drains Nina's mineral bank.
Thing is, Nina can make 110 additional Zealots.
Yeah. It's I mean that's a little Zercopium right now. And now the Zealots, I mean, this Ultra's still fighting well, but eventually they will wear that down. And again, is it gonna get worn down? Nah, the Zealots are dead. Ultras against Zealots, it's pretty strong, Roddy. It's something.
We have a lot more Zealots show up. There is a Queen that can drop a Transfuse and can maybe transfuse the other Ultra as well. I think Ukko with his main army, by the way. This Zealot fight is cute enough, but let's maybe take a look at the main army. As Nina is just staying near her batteries. Ukko obviously knows that the game looks very, very tired and is just trying to make something happen. We have a 1 Mutalisk right now. I love how the final 100 gas. Ukko's like a Viper or a Muta. He's like 1 Muta.
I am. You know what? It's the ultimate answer against these Zealot run-bys, which continue to try, but Ukko unburrows, reburrows the Ultra, unburrows it again, and now burrows again. Seems like Nina has finally broken this position. The Queen will fall, but it's not like there's a ton of mining there anyways. But in the middle of the map, now she's really establishing position. So Roddy, Ukko, absolutely mined out here. He's mining a little gas on that north side base, fully revelated. 13 Broodlords, 1 Muta, 37 Corruptors, a couple Ultras. Is this army enough to beat Nina's?
I don't think so, unless it's just a magical fight. But the problem is, even if it's good enough to somehow win the fight, you need to do it 2 more times over, right? Because Nina has such a big bang. The Archons are in a really good spot there. They're splashing over the entire Zerg army. I mean, this game is honestly over. It's been over for, I think, a very, very long time. But I guess we will just wait until the big final fight. Like, if it was a strong combo of Vipers and Infestors, and then obviously this army, I'd be like, you know what? You never know. There is a chance that Ukko doesn't just win the fight, but that he completely smashes it. But I think with the current army, even a win is not necessarily good enough.
No, you need to snap all those storms. But hey, look at the Neurals. They're on top of some of the carriers. They're going to try to do something. But these Archons beneath, they are they're shredding them. The Corruptors don't stand a chance here. Ukko, one last fight. GG. Nina, she could have won the game in 10, but instead, she chooses to win the game in 35.
Yeah, 10 was maybe a little bit early, but okay. I think as soon as the first few carriers were out with either +1 air weapons or +2, there was just nothing that could have ever killed them. And I can dig a proper macro game, but this, to me, it didn't even really feel like a macro game, right? Like, Nina was so far ahead, just had a better army throughout the entirety of the game. And then the only risky thing about playing it like this is obviously that if you let your opponent max out, they get 3/3 Corruptors, they get a combo of Vipers and Infestors, which is a very difficult thing to execute. Then it could get scary. But yeah, if Ukko never makes any Vipers, it's going to be really hard to win a game like this. Like, you can find yourself in this scenario over and over and over again. And it's hard to maybe get value out of the Viper because, yes, there's High Templars to worry about, feedback to worry about, and whatnot. But you still got to try, BO. Like, if we're not trying, then I feel like we're kind of digging our own grave.
Yeah. And, you know, I was kind of in my head before we got the game, and it's not going to be on Equilibrium, by the way. Alcyone is going to be game 2. I was like casually hoping that we were going to finally see Radistet, second game of this series, just keep you awake a little longer, you know, back from Vegas on the jet lag, whatever it is, and at least keep you from your dinner a little longer at the very least.
No, the last one is absolutely coming into play. The rest, not so much. I mean, Friday was proper tough after a very long journey, so Friday I was struggling a little. No, today I woke up at a very reasonable time. Yesterday I woke up a little earlier than I should have. It was like 6:41 a.m. I was like, oh, even WTL is going to be tough. Today I'm fine, and I don't mind long games. If anything, I think long games can be very fun, but it shouldn't be long for the sake of just being long, right? And just kind of camping and dragging it out forever. And I would maybe understand it like a tiny bit more if this is round 5 of the Swiss format and winner advances into the playoffs, loser gets eliminated. But opening game of the second best of 3 in the Swiss format, when we can just end it, then I think we should kind of just end it.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where Ukko wasn't the one dragging it out. Nina was
I
the one
guess
dragging
Ukko
it
just
out.
didn't want to leave. Well, he probably felt like, do I still have a chance? Like maybe some people think like, wow, Ukko could have just left. But if you have money in the bank, you can get all your bases. Your opponent is not attacking you, and you can still increase the quality of your army. Yeah, you're not going to leave, right? It'd be kind of weird to leave. But I find it more shocking that he had so much time to build Vipers. And I do get it, because I often say it is better to play what you're comfortable with than to play what other people say is the best thing. But if you're not good with it, then it doesn't really make any sense to play. But we're watching the ESL Winter America Regionals. We know that all of these players are good. Ukko is a damn good Zerg player. And it makes me kind of sad that he probably doesn't have the confidence in the Infestors and Vipers at the same time. Maybe he likes using one each, but not both. I feel like that's something you could work on. If you qualify for a competition like this, if you're the finest of your region, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out if you can do both, because game 2 is on Alcyone, another big map, another map with a lot of bases. Let's see what happens as we move now into game 2. On the bottom left, in the blue, up 1. Took a little bit, but she secured it. It's Nina.
In the bottom right side, or top right side, excuse me, we're looking at the main base of the Zerg, who's down 0-1, tried to make some magic happen with Muras into Roaches, but just couldn't find the damage early on, and then found himself in a very difficult position. This is Apprentice Esports Ukko.
Okay, so Roddy, I didn't think it was going to happen. I was honestly memeing about long games going into this series. I'm like, we had it last season. Kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing, or a once every so often thing. It's not going to happen again. But we had Nina sit there and just direct the game out to 37 minutes, because that's where she felt the most comfortable winning the games, making sure that there was no way she was going to lose. So now into game 2 here. If you're Ukko, you probably don't want to go through that again. Although I said that last season too, and game 2 part 2 went 45 minutes. You probably, again, don't want this to happen.
Maybe Ukko does want it to happen. You know, what if he just absolutely enjoys and he loves everything about it?
Okay, then how do you make sure that you go down to 45 minutes less behind?
That's a good question. Obviously, denying bases is something that Ukko did try, but it just wasn't really possible anymore. After that first attack didn't work out, there was maybe a moment where obviously the Spire was online, and Ukko's game plan was what I like to call the Rainer special of ZVZ, because Rainer used to do this in ZVZ, where you get a Spire, you make a couple Munas, you force out Spores and maybe a Hydra then, and then bam, you surprise him with the max out Roach attack or Roach Ravager attack. So it really wasn't about the Munas, it was just a distraction maneuver. I think in the previous game, what if Ukko would have doubled down on Muras when Nina didn't have Blink Stalkers yet, and sure, was building Stargates, but we're all familiar with Stargates being unpowered, right? So maybe that's a play. We just go all out on the Muda. We don't make a couple of Mudas, but we go all out.
It's been a long time since we've seen Muta Corruptor play, and you know what? I understand why some people don't like it. Muta Corruptor versus Void Ray Phoenix can be pretty binary sometimes, but sprinkle that in there, a little bit of spice, a little bit of joie de vivre in a game, it can be fun. I'm down for it. Muta Corruptor here, Ukko. Let's go.
I wouldn't hate it either. But it can also just be Muda Link Bane or Muda into Ultras later on, as long as we make a lot of them. We don't just make 6 and be like, oh, okay, let's hope we can force out a couple of cannons and a Stargate and then try to win with roaches. But you can obviously play a very committed Muda style. And I think even if there is Storm, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the end all of the Muda, because it's hard to land Storms. If you only have like 1 or 2 high Templars. Let's take a look at these adepts. Ooh, Ukko send those drones back to mining, and he does. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, everyone in the end of the day is going to play what they are very comfortable with, what they think is going to give them the best chance to win. And if Ukko is not that familiar or that comfortable with spamming Mudas forever against the Protoss, he's obviously not going to do it all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think that's true. You talk about Storms. I mean, you can definitely beat Storms with Mutas. I think back to that Jadon game back from like, what, 7 years ago at this point, with the, more than that, with the splits on, I think it was Metalopolis, maybe, Neoplanet S, something like that. He goes, just pre-splits all the Mutas and the Storms wins the game on the Muta swap. We're long gone from there, but it's possible, you know. Sure, there's a game more recently. I just can't think of it.
I feel like Wayne is a proper Muda spammer against Protoss, and he actually does pretty good with it. But we have an Oracle finding 2 drones, by the way, so the Adepts didn't really commit. Nina playing it safe, but the Oracle does find 2 drones. There is a safety Void Ray being built as well, so it's Oracle into safety Void Ray. And we'll just kind of take it from there.
So, Roddy, this is a pretty quick forge coming out of Nina right now. It's before Twilight, it's before Robo, anything like that. What does this get her? What does this build into?
Well, I mean, Nina is doing something a bit. I think it's just going to be, I won't say cannons at first, but maybe we are just going to prioritize upgrades, get very quick attack upgrades. I'm mostly confused, not about the quick 4th base, because I actually think that's a very cool idea by Nina. It's an ultra well protected 4th base, right? It's very hard for the Zerg to do something about that base because of all the rocks and the mineral walls we've got. The second Void Ray is the one that surprises me a little bit. If there is a second Void Ray, is there a third Void Ray as well, Bio?
Yeah. There's going to be a third Void Ray. I'm buying into it. This is going to be some sort of weird Void Ray charge +1 timing. I mean, we have had that happen in the past, but no, it's going to be Blink +1. 2 Void Rays. You're right, though, Roddy. That's really weird. That's not something... Yeah. I can't remember the last time I saw it. Like, 1 Void Ray, fine, to kill all the Overlords on the map. It's not uncommon. But 2?
You know what 2 Void Rays are very good for, though?
Setting up the 3 Void Rays.
No, surviving. You know, because Zerg doesn't really have a whole lot of units early on that shoot up, unless Ukko would have gone for some sort of a Queen Roach Ravager attack, where we elevate the Queens, or we pick up the Queens in a Drop Lord and fly to the other side of the map. But yeah, that is not happening, so... Yeah, I guess Nina just wants to have some vision, deny an Overlord Scout, even though I don't think we're hiding anything ultra crazy. But if I was Ukko right now, and I would see double Void Ray and an Oracle, and I've barely seen anything else, I wouldn't necessarily think about the crazy amount of gateways that are currently coming online. And on top of that, Ukko did see that Nexus in the bottom side of the map. He really doesn't know anything besides that. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, we'll see. I guess it will all come down to the execution of Roach, Link, Bane, Ravager against the 2 Void Rays, the safety Void Rays, and then a lot of Stalkers. And knowing Nina, we're probably going to get Storm as well.
I mean, that makes sense. There we go. Templar Archives on the way as well. I was looking at this for a second. I'm like, man, all the Queens in the front. Overlord speed on the way. Like, this is going to be a... Well, it is actually. I was going to say this is going to be a Queen drop, but no, it seems like it's going to be a highway through the middle of the map here. Ukko wants to kill Nina early. At least give himself the opportunity to, but Nina sees this so fast. She's got the Zelnaga Tower right there. She sees what's happening. And hey, Roddy, we're looking at 8 gateways right now. +1 is done. Blink is very close to completion. This build from Ukko, I don't think it does anything.
Well, I mean, it's still a lot of Zerg, right? And one of the Void Rays just died there against the Queens. It's very cool by the Void, by the way, to gun down one of these Drop Lords, but now the other Queens have shown up. It all comes down to how well can we spend our money, can we take some good trades. The batteries have come online, but they're all next to each other, so maybe Corrosive Valve can do something. Nina is sitting on some money as well, but with the 9 gateways, I guess it is going to be somewhat easy for her to spend it. The second Void Ray falls too. I mean, so far, BO, you're spot on. It hasn't really done a whole lot yet, but let's see if it can turn not a whole lot yet into something. What about taking out the debris there and attacking that base at the bottom? Like, why is that not a play?
I feel like that's really scary because that's a very thin choke. So you can get caught up there if Nina's aware of it. You lose half your army, the other half, and even if you get the base at that point, it becomes really, really hard. But now Nina on the map, on creep a little bit here, but getting Raptors down, getting Lings down. And this is one thing Nina's always been known for, her Blink Micro. Beautiful here. Blinks on top of the Raptors as well. Now has to go back because there are so many Lings. But Roddy, they were stuck in this El Naga tower behind the butt of the Queen for so long. Imagine if these +1 Lings had joined the fight 30 seconds ago. 15 seconds ago.
That was painful. The stupid Queen, so slow off creep, right? And they were unfortunately blocking all the Lings on the side of Ukko. Ukko is in trouble, but that doesn't mean that this game is going to end anytime soon. Because we know that Nina likes to play it out very safe. Nina's going to go up to 5 bases in the bottom right side. Currently enjoying a 19 worker lead. Ukko does have a Spire. This is obviously not the same moment as in the previous game where we thought Mutas have a lot of potential against Immortals, Sentries, Archons, and only charge. Now you have to worry about all these Stalkers with very quick +1. Lings, though, finding a lot of probes, and I don't think these Zealots are going to be good enough. So Nina's going to need more. The Stalkers are making their way over. Very good Ling attack, at least by Ukko.
Yeah, Nina goes and forces a recall. Oh, that was awkward there, Nina. I guess it does bring all the Stalkers together, but she already had the Stalkers over. That's very much a waste of a recall in this game where Ukko is going to try to buy as much time as possible. Wait, just go for mass counterattack. So, especially with 12 meters on the way, Ukko should lose the 5th. The Stalkers are there. They got +1. They're powerful. But
yeah,
now,
the link count isn't there anymore, right? This is where you would really love 30 more links to show up, because that is what is problematic for Stalkerinos. But the couple of Roaches and Ravages, not necessarily that scary. Nina, however, does think it's scary, and she's gonna go home for a bit. And you mentioned waste of recall, Bio, and you're kind of spot on, right? Because now all the Mutas show up in your natural, and you can't recall anymore. Nina actually only has 8 free supply. Should be absolutely crushing the fight on the right side, though, because Ukko has already bled out so many units. But yeah, the Mutas have done at least something. Ukko is battling.
That he is, although some of those meters that he made, they came in with the army on the right side, and Nina killed them very quickly. But now it's truly the Zerg swarm here from every side. Mutas in the mineral line, they kill a couple more probes. It's a problem for Nina, but she's on 5 Nexus. She can rebuild that. It's not that big of a deal. It's this army at the front that she does have to hold on to. And Roddy, you mentioned it. So much of the supply is in the air for Ukko. If you go Mutiling Bane like this, or just Mutiling, you don't win straight up fights anymore. It's all about the base trade, all about jerking the Zerg around the Protoss around the map. And Nina, with her base setup here, she refuses to be moved. The fight that Ukko wants to take is the spot she wants to defend anyways.
Yep, here come all the Stalkers. There's a War Prism as well, so you don't need to worry too much about losing your pylons there. What are these Mutas gonna go for? The Ravages will take out the Prism. 10 probes have fallen. Banelings now rolling into the middle line. That could be kind of cool for Ukko. But in the end, they are forced to settle for the Nexus. It's 126 army supply for the Zerg, and these games can definitely get crazy. We have a bunch of High Templars with Storm, but it's really hard to defend against 20 plus Mutalisks when all you have are Stalkers. I know there's one Phoenix, but even one Phoenix BL, I'd love to believe, it's not going to believe. Nina might be forced to play a little more aggressive because you don't want to chase Mutas around forever.
No, you don't. In fact, she's going in right now. The first Storm's okay. Second Storm not landing just yet. Nina just taking the fight right here, not blinking. Biles are going to try to land. Here come the Storms. Ukko from every side. The Storms are just killing everything, though, even though she wasn't microing for quite a while because she had to deal with problems back at home. 13, 14 probes go down. More Phoenix on the way. But Nina, despite that, and again, it was an awkward fight, still kind of wins it anyways. And now there's the recall as well, trying to shut this down. Despite everything, I think, well, the Stalkers have to get away. This is still scary. But somehow Nina wins that fight.
Yeah, I think Nina did all right in the fight, especially when she had to deal with Zerglings in her triangle base, all the Mutas in the main. I'm not sure in the end why we decided to recall just a couple of Stalkers, because now we kind of gave up our position in the top right side. Lynx trying to get on top of these probes near the goal. The single shield battery here would be nice. Nina normally not short of static defenses when it comes to the cannons and the batteries, but I think Nina did really good there, all things considered, because it wasn't just that fight that she had to worry about. And if she would have messed up, with her High Templars. The Banelings would have connected or something. Then honestly, she could have gotten crushed in the top right. And then she would have been like, why did I move out? I shouldn't have moved out. I think in the end, the American Protoss handled it really well. Stalkers is still blinking back, and I think Ukko is running out of steam. Even with the 81 drones that he's working with, he simply cannot deal with this big Stalker army. An impressive game.